This doesn't go on the recording, Ashley.
That's the intro right there.
Yeah.
And it cuts off right there.
Welcome everyone to our third installment of Book Club. And today we're going to be talking about Catching Tell a Crow, which is written by a sibling duo, Indigenous duo. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. Initial thoughts when you started reading it?
Much better in print than on audio.
Ooh.
That's fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it read by them or someone else?
It was read by what's her name? Is it Melissa? Oh, I did know this. She's an Indigenous actor.
Mm-hmm.
Tapsell. Melissa Tapsell, I think that's her name. Wow.
Yeah.
So like she's been in various movies and comedy stuff, and you know everybody really likes her. So I would have expected it to be good, but it was really boring.
Well,
yeah.
so I was gonna originally listen to the audiobook, and then I saw a review and was like, yeah, I'll just read it.
I kind of feel like with those, especially like in Catching's perspective, it really would have, because I didn't listen to the audio, it probably wouldn't have come across as well.
It didn't. And she read it really like, it was like, hang on, let me like literally find a bit of Catching's. So she was just like, I'm a ball curled up. I'm a glass thrown against rock. Shattered. Bits of me everywhere. I'll never find them all.
Oh.
Thanks, Siri.
Yeah.
Basically.
Riveting.
Yeah. So then, then when I opened the book and I was like, oh, look how it's written. Yeah.
Clearly didn't come across very well in the audio. I guess that brings us into, how did you guys like the split narrative and the different storytelling formats they used?
I actually loved Catching's perspective. I really, really did. Especially when she was talking about, I think, like, was it the hands coming from the ceiling? I think it was. Like, everything was so familiar, but so alien. Yeah. It was so strange. Yes. I loved that. I really, really loved that. Maybe that's not quite answering the question. But I'm just saying, because everything in Beth's perspective is so very, exact. You know exactly what's happening because you're watching everything, you're familiar with everything, whereas everything from Catching's perspective is very alien, but it's real. Or is it? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. And what you said about it being like kind of like familiar but not, and the fact that I think like it's you're kind of expecting some kind of like fantasy thing, but it's not quite that either, but it is like, I'm not quite sure how to, like, magical but not, and you know that it's sinister, but you're not quite sure why, because everything's sort of familiar but not.
Yeah, I loved how her narrative was broken into poetry lines, because it was more like thought processes and just split thoughts each time, and that I feel like that really emphasized her emotions as well as her experience.
It also kind of adds to like the unreliable narrator sort of thing, because if it's thought process, then how much of it is real and how much of it is what she's thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly. And because it sort of gives you that impression of poetry as well, like poetry is often metaphorical and exploring something through an abstract way as well. Yeah.
I think as well, like going along that, you can like tell through Beth's like perspective, she had more, not an optimistic approach, but like she had a sense of hope leading towards like, we'll get these answers through hearing these stories. And then you hear from Catching's perspective, and she was just going along with whatever the heck was thrown at her like over and over. And I think it was a much more definitive, rolling with the punches kind of, I guess, way of narrating. I think that was definitely a really good like way of contrasting between the different thought processes that Beth has and that she has. If that made sense.
Yeah.
It did to me.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, sure. You made sense. I did a Bethany, and I marked where Catching had put her, see if my lighting will work. There you go. I was really interested because it like specifically did it in thirds, because that was her arc. She had an arc that went over Beth. And I just thought that was really interesting.
That's cool.
I wish Bethany was here to talk about the markings that she made, because she's made quite a few of them, and I don't know why she marked them.
It's all right. We'll quiz her. I purposefully made marks in mine this time, and it felt very wrong.
Oh
no.
I
had a library book, so.
I read this after Bethany did, and she marked so many of these pages to the point where in the end I felt like I had to mark the pages. So I've made a couple of markings of my own. I think they were mostly sarcastic comments, though.
Yep.
Most of mine were just like, wow, what a good descriptive. Wow, what a good descriptive.
Yeah.
Oh, there was so many good descriptions in this book.
Oh,
like,
so
I
good.
just, good stuff.
Which brings us on to the next question, which was going to be the writing style and how you guys felt about it.
I went into this book not expecting to like it, I'll be honest. I don't know why, but it's not what I'd usually read. It was just completely foreign to me. I had no idea what to expect. But when I finished it, I just went, that's one of the best books I've read this year. Like, honestly, I'm all about description when it comes to reading. I love like describing the environment and trying to understand it, and that's kind of why I love Catching's perspective a lot. But I loved it. I really loved this book, and I loved the writing style of it.
There was some beautifully like well-written analogies as well, that I really liked, like how she described his grief as caught in a muddy swamp that she had to get him to come out of.
Yeah.
I was like, beautifully written.
And then there were like some really, I'm trying to look for it, but I can't find it. There's a bit where they like start laughing over something, and then suddenly her dad like stops, and there was a line about, he forgot I was dead until he didn't.
Yeah.
There was one later on, she was like, yeah, I could be a police officer when I grow old. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah. One of my favorites that I underlined in like the first 50 pages was the corners of their mouths were turned up, but it didn't reach their eyes. Like, it's so subtle the way they describe characters, but it brings so much to them at the same time. And like, also, it was such an easy read.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It really was. Yeah.
It flowed so well.
And it deals with such a heavy theme as well that it's surprising how light it is to read.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you realize a lot of what was going on underneath all the descriptions and metaphors and all that sort of thing.
That'd be good for a school book, I'm not gonna lie.
To realize that definitely in the later stages I was like, wow, this is beautifully written, and then the reveal happens of what actually happens, like, wow, that was beautifully described, but oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did anyone cry?
I almost cried at the very end, like the part where he's like, he gives what's that name, Auntie Viv a call, he's like, yeah, I'll come to the birthday party. I was like, oh man.
Yeah. I think also when he realizes, he's like, what, you mean there's somewhere else you could go? And she's like, yeah, but I'm staying for you. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do kind of feel like maybe it's just because I haven't been seeing my dad a lot recently. Like, that relationship with Beth and her dad really hit home. Like, I don't cry in books. And when you said, did you cry in this book? I was like, a little bit. And that means a lot. No, so yeah, I cried a little bit at the end. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I was really close a lot of times. Like, I don't cry much in media in general or life in general, but man, there were some moments where I was so close.
Yeah.
Like, they're really well written. And that's the thing, that I had to like step back, because sentence structure wise, it's so simple, but there's so much packed beneath it in emotion that it just brings so much to the reader.
It's very carefully written. Very carefully written.
Yeah,
like every sentence means
is
something.
important. Yeah. Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I think it's also like knowing that the authors are Indigenous authors as well, and there's sort of just, it's not like all the characters are Aboriginal, or we know that the school is full of Aboriginal kids or anything, but there's just suggestions there that, like, yes, we are bringing that perspective in addition to the story at face value itself.
Yeah. I feel like that strengthens it, the fact that they weren't just like in your face, this is what's happening. They danced around it a bit.
Yeah.
And they were like, if you can see the problem, then there is a problem, kind of thing.
I think this is one that I definitely knew that Bethany had marked out. So that one I could actually find. But they were saying, I feel like it was very topical, because half of the reason as to why we chose this book was because of the Black Lives Matter movement. And we really felt like we needed to represent that movement somehow. And I feel like this book, whilst it didn't really, like you said, it wasn't really in your face, there was the line that really hit me that said, that wasn't why no one noticed, Dad replied, or not the only reason. If a white girl had gone missing like that, or just vanished on her way home from school, there had been an outcry. Like, that comment, where it was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Coming from a white man as well, because the dad was a white man in that. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sneaky, putting in little commentary like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I also like, there's the other one when they first meet Catching, and the dad says something about, oh, you're Aboriginal, and she goes, yeah, like, is that a problem? And he's like, no, my wife was Aboriginal, and she's like, oh, well, I guess we'll be best friends then.
Yeah, she relaxes.
But also that I guess she's kind of calling him out on, like, you're still not going to understand all my experiences.
And I feel like that's a good thing about his character, is that he doesn't try to either.
Yeah.
He's also really careful about where he steps.
Yeah. But he's also welcomed into the family.
Yeah.
Because even if he is a white man, he is still part of the family.
Yeah, true.
But let's be honest, he really needed.
Yeah. Because didn't it also say, like, in the first few chapters that his dad was also, like, a cop who was also pretty much racist and treated the white people in the area better? Like, and he was, like, trying to do everything he can to be against that and actually on neutral ground. Yeah. I had a point to that sentence, and now it's gone from my brain. There you go. Cool.
It's all right.
Was there a particular character or pairing of characters that you guys really liked? I know, Elly, you already said, like, Beth and her dad a lot, and I love that. I like the dialogue, especially they had the silent dialogue when someone else was around, and he'd just, like, shrug or, like, really slowly nod. I love that.
I really liked that.
I also really enjoyed the other girl. I was forgetting her name. The one who was with Catching.
Crow?
Yeah. I really enjoyed her.
The one whose name is in the title?
The other name on the
6-hour shift, don't mind me. I loved her character because she wasn't necessarily pessimistic, but she was realistic in her situation, and I kind of just like that perspective alongside Catching, where she was like, don't feel and you'll be fine kind of thing.
I think it's because, like, not every like Catching has that whole, there's the whole thing with the Catching women and that lineage that she's got behind her, but not everybody has that, and not everybody is necessarily a fighter and can, you know, do what she does. But the way they pull through together at the end is really good.
Yeah.
I do remember having a conversation with Bethany about this. Now, I finished this book a while ago, so I can't tell you exactly what the conversation was about, but I do remember that Bethany actually really didn't like Crow's character, or at least didn't like how it resolved.
That was going to be one of my questions about how the ending was. So maybe we should wait for Bethany to show up to ask that question.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Were there any other characters that stood out to you guys, big, small, in the way they were written?
I liked the dynamic between, what's in it, Elly, I think. Yeah, Elly and the dad as well. Like, I liked, you could see she went from, like, the happy smile to you can actually see, like, the depths of the character coming out more and more. And she wanted to talk about, like, or pursue what she actually wanted to pursue. And I loved, there was one line when Beth first met her, which cracked me up, which she was narrating. Yeah, and she goes, Beth referring to Elly as Alison, call me Elly, right afterwards. And I was like, that's so snarky, like, right away.
Respect.
It was like right after, just like, yeah, call me Elly. Then afterwards, just like, okay, she's already talking trash. Well done, Beth.
I loved it when they were interviewing around the town and Beth was like, I'll just go into the house and check. And her dad was like, I don't want to approve of this, but it's really helpful.
Yeah. So go on.
I also really enjoyed, like, how protective he still is of her, like, around dead bodies and things, because, like, he knows, like, although she's dead, she's still technically a child.
Yeah.
He's really protective of that.
But I think that technique was used really well, especially at the end, because you don't want to write how graphic the reveal is. So by keeping it from Beth's perspective and keeping her locked out, you know what's happening, but you don't get the vivid description of it. I think that's very clever.
Yeah, that was really well done. True. Because it took me a second to realize. I was like, they're going in, she's sitting here, and I was like, wait, she's narrating. I was like, okay, we'll find out.
It's like you wanted to just leave Beth for a second.
And considering Ali's reaction as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a pretty, like, common trope for, you know, and you stay here, okay, and then, like, immediately follow them in. So it wouldn't have been entirely, as a narrative thing, wouldn't have been entirely unexpected if she hadn't been like,
To be fair, Beth would.
She would. But I feel like she sort of knew this was like, she's like, no, this is the big one. Like, maybe
maybe not.
Go there.
Maybe we'll just chill on this log for a bit.
Yeah.
How did you guys handle Beth as a ghost in the beginning?
I can't remember.
Was that like, was
Yeah.
it like you read it and you were like, oh, cool, she's a ghost? Or was it like a bit of like you need to read a bit more to feel comfortable about it? Was it weird?
I mean, after I read the blurb first, and it was just literally nothing's been the same for her since she died, I kind of just rolled with the punches afterwards.
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
like,
that
okay,
was
so
the
if she's a
same.
ghost, cool. And then just kind of, rolled with it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we read this book straight after More Than This, where it
Mm,
literally
yeah,
starts
yeah.
off with the boy dying.
We don't mean to
I'm
be
sensing
following
a
this theme,
theme.
guys.
The next book
Um,
is Death, the Autobiography.
I think when I started reading it, I was really curious to see how they would explain it. But again, because they were careful with their writing, they didn't just go, and I'm dead. Let's see if I can find, I highlighted it, helpful. The way she says there's no dust touching her dress, and then she says, my dress would always be as yellow and crisp as it had been on the day Auntie Viv drove me to the birthday party. And like, it doesn't straight out say, I'm dead, this is fun. It's just a never ending yellow dress that you can gather from that, which again is like hats off to them for their writing.
Oh, that was it. No, I loved Catching's use of repetition when she was describing where she was as well, and what she was trying to like go towards. Like there was phrases that she said a lot, like "I'm glass thrown against rock," and then the one later on that got me when she was actually discovering what she could do was, "What I can catch, I can fight. Name, catch, fight. Name, catch, fight." And she repeated that like 3 times in the same paragraph. Yeah, I think this made it a lot like cooler to see her discovering what she could do with her new abilities, I guess. For yeah.
It's also like the whole like the granny, nana, grandma, mum, me, that repetition as well.
I was just gonna, I found that quite powerful, that it was sort of these ancestors that were giving her the power to sort of come into her own and grow into herself and be sort of part of a continuum, because then I guess the idea would be that it would then continue on beyond her under other circumstances, I guess.
God, it's good writing, man.
Yeah.
Man.
It was really good. It was really good.
It's so well written. And we went from reading, I probably shouldn't name drop a book, I didn't like that much last time, but the book we read last month for our other book club.
To The Princess Bride once again.
Oh no. Can't go
Just
one
feel
episode
grateful
without.
we didn't succumb you to that.
I have read it in the past. And,
Same.
It was much better if you didn't read the interjections in between. I will stand by that point.
Oh my god.
I wish. Yeah, no,
well,
we
that's
read
what I ended up doing, and that's why I liked it.
And it was so dryly
you can
narrated.
name drop.
It was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we kind of deviated.
Yeah, we did.
And like, I didn't hate the narrative, but God, like the descriptions were just not like colorful at all, and didn't really
No,
add
it's just
that much.
so like, I'm
just
here.
plain and sad for like 400 pages in small fine print in like 20 plus page chapters that would just drag on.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that the one that just had like never-ending chapters that Bethany was complaining about?
I think that's one. Yeah,
that's
it
the
was.
one. The 70
We went from More Than This to that, and she was like, God. And I was like, yeah.
I think we all kind of did after More Than This. We were like, oh, this is doable.
Yeah. It's like another 400 pages, and then, So this was a breeze.
I just check the next book now to make sure that it's actually acceptable. I mean, I think it's okay. Yeah, no, honestly, I think it's okay. A lot of the chapters like only 2 pages long.
We'll just keep doing thick and then small and then.
Yeah.
I won't say it's a small one.
No, I looked at it.
It's not War and Peace.
Picks it up.
Well, I would just skip out on that one.
But yes, the writing in this book is very careful, but also very easy to read.
And what with 2 authors as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, originally going into this, I thought... Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, like, I wonder whether, like, because sometimes co-authors, like, one of them writes one point of view and the other one writes the other, whether it was like that or whether they just both wrote both of them or...
That's what I thought it was going to be originally. I thought for some reason going into it, since they had the 2 main characters and hadn't introduced Catching that much yet, like at least before going into the actual book, I thought it was going to be from the dad's perspective and Beth's perspective. And then reading into this, I was like, yeah. And then I'm a lot happier they didn't. I think it was a lot cooler seeing Beth's perspective of her dad grow into a like better person throughout. And I think that was a lot better to see it happen as opposed to him narrating his own growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of already touched on it, but I want to go further into how they discuss death in general. Not necessarily just bad things, but like death in general, how you guys feel like they dealt with it.
I feel like they dealt with it in different ways. Because I feel like Beth had a very no-nonsense view when it came to death. Like she's just, I'm dead now. I'm just following you around. I'm dead now. That's it. But then I feel like Catching's perspective, especially towards the end, and I feel like this might be a question later on. I've actually not checked the questions. But like the ending of it, it's so ambiguous as to like whether she's actually alive or dead.
It really was.
She was like, I can go anywhere. And I was like, cool.
Good to know.
Yeah. I quite liked the fact that, because I've thought about this before, that like Westerners have a really, like, death is taboo and you don't talk about it until you have to. And I felt that wasn't present in here, that it was a bit more open, and death's not this terrible ending, that there is more, and it's like rainbow and beautiful things. And that was quite nice.
Well, that was very present when they were discussing the yellow, green, and black at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one point as well where Crow wakes Catching because she was going towards Rainbows and wakes her up, and then the line after was like, oh, she saved my life. And I didn't catch that for a second, and I was like, oh, she was actually going to die in that. And I was like, okay, that makes more sense now. Yep.
I think, back to your point, Elly, about Beth's character being so easygoing about death is because she didn't think there was more to begin with, but then at that point when she like sees the colors and everything, she begins to question it a bit more. And I really like that turning point because she then had a decision to make. And I don't know, I just found it really interesting seeing the different perspectives, because it's like you'd think it would just be alive or dead perspective, but it's an alive, dead, and beyond that perspective.
Yeah, that's it. The fact that there is a choice, and it's not just you're dead now, you go where dead people go.
Yeah. Like there's more to it, and especially with Catching, where she can travel between the two and do what she wants.
I really wish Bethany was here. Like the discussion we had before, I can't remember all of it, and I feel like she would be more articulate with it.
She's just finishing up. I'm checking.
Well, here's the thing that I thought. I actually thought that Catching was kind of alive. Like she was mostly dead, going back to the Princess Bride scenario. But like she was halfway between the two, but I kind of pictured her as still being alive, just as being able to travel between the two. Whereas Bethany thought, oh,
hey,
she is.
Never mind, Bethany can tell you what she thinks.
We're up to a very important question that we were waiting for you for. What do you think? Do you think Catching is alive or is she dead?
I didn't think she was alive. I thought she was a ghost completely. It was really obvious to me because of when, right at the end, when the dad went to the the shed thing, and he saw all the like bodies and corpses and stuff, and that was her corpse that was in there, one of the corpses that was in there, and her kind of gift that it kind of went through in the prose sections was that she can kind of go between these different kind of realms. So to me, it wasn't that she was alive ever, because she never interacted with the living world. The only reason she could interact with the living world was through the dad, who could already interact with ghosts through Beth.
I find it's not really clear, like did her ability, did she always have her ability, or is it after she died that she was then I think it's probably ambiguous on purpose.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, to be honest.
I'll just relay a couple questions for you, Bethany. What was your favorite character or favorite character pairing?
Oh, totally Beth and her dad. One, she's got a great name, so awesome.
Biased already.
No, but I actually, I really liked, there were bits that Elly's in the books probably read where there's bits of annotation where I just really enjoyed her interacting with her dad and talking about her relationships. And there was a bit where she was like, yeah, we could have our own fictional daughter and dad cop show or something like that. And I was like, yes, I would watch this.
And I actually wrote that in the book.
There you go.
I would watch this.
You did.
I enjoyed it. Kind of talking about the relationships, Beth's relationship and her father's relationship with her Aboriginal family. It was just so interesting seeing, because him as a white man feeling like after his wife had died, you know, I can't be part of this, you know, I need to separate myself. But they're like, no, we're family, it's community. And so those are my two. The dad was probably my favorite in general because of the cool showing, not telling aspect of a lot of his grief that was done in writing. But Beth was also pretty cool.
I was saying before that I liked their subtle dialogue when there's another person around, and he would just shrug or give a subtle nod if she was talking to him, and he was like, I can't actually respond right now, but
I loved in the cars when he like held up the photograph to look like he was like framing it so she could see it in the back seat. Like,
or when he was on the phone just so he could have a conversation with her. That was pretty good.
Oh, I mean, how else would you do it if you had a dead relative that you needed to talk
to?
I mean, I personally never experienced it, so
never had to think about it.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Yep.
Any tips?
Ask these guys, they would know.
Yeah, well, we can't interact with the living.
Okay, sorry. On my screen, it looks like you were just pointing at Elly. On mine, yeah, she'll know.
I was doing a subtle plug to Green Oak Theatres. Inheritance coming soon.
It went from the screen that's recording, so.
Okay, that's good. That's what matters.
Maybe she was just confessing to my murder. We would never know.
Oh.
Find out next time. Bethany, what did you think of the split storytelling?
Well, it's really interesting. Like, I remember finishing the book and I was kind of like, that was really weird. Because I wasn't super I think because I read it quite quickly as well, I wasn't super invested in the prose, the almost poetry style. I feel like there was a lot that was, as a narrative, that was missed. But I feel like because of the emotive language that was used, there was a lot more kind of depth to it in other ways. I don't know, it was really interesting. And like how there was never, like as Emily was saying, there was this ambiguous kind of nature to it, especially when we were going through talking about, well, is she just high and imagining this whole kind of fantasy in her head? Or is it something that actually happened and this is her trauma brain trying
dissociating?
Yeah. So that was kind of cool, playing with that kind of aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I loved the imagery of like Crow when she was called Grey and she was just like colourless because all the colour had been like taken from her. There was some really powerful imagery in that, which was a really cool way of, I guess, trying to make, you know, incidents that are really awful quite accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just going to say, on the topic of Crow, because I remember Bethany and I have had a couple of discussions about this book. Sorry, guys, we spoiled the book club. But
you guys live together. It's going to happen.
Well, I finished the book at like 1:00 in the morning and she just happened to be awake at the time. So we were just talking about it. But I remember Bethany and I were talking about Crow as a character. And I brought this up before, but Bethany wasn't in the chat. I remember that you didn't like how Crow was revealed in the end.
Yeah. It like really bothered me that the two spectral characters we had of Beth and Catching, they couldn't physically interact with the world, but for some reason that didn't really make sense. Crow, we're talking spoilers. We can talk spoilers because we're all here. Like how Crow was the one who was, you know, responsible for the murder of the terrible men in the end. But like it didn't make sense that she was part of this spectral, ghostly, spiritual realm, but could still cause physical impact on the living world. But I liked the twist. It was very cool, and I was like, yeah, you murdered the people who murdered you. Go, girlfriend. But like it just didn't make sense within the narrative that they'd constructed in mind.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, it hadn't occurred to me at all, but you make a very good point.
Now I'm questioning everything.
Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe we should all just read the book again and figure out what happened.
Maybe.
That's it. The next book club is actually this book again. Oh, I guess.
Round 2.
No kidding. That wouldn't be a bad idea. Well, actually, Emily, you said you'd read the book before, hadn't you?
I had. Yeah, I listened to it.
Yeah, how was it the second time around?
I enjoyed it a lot more. I think it really needed the physical format.
Visual element,
Yeah, because as I said earlier, like I hadn't realized from the audiobook that Catching's chapters were formatted in that sort of almost poetry way or anything like that. And yeah, it was just a very different, completely different reading experience. Yeah, which was interesting. I think this is probably the first time I've reread a book that I had previously listened to. I don't have an end to that sentence.
That's all right. Honestly, I didn't have like a set answer that I was looking for. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And I do find it genuinely interesting that, you know, it did make such a difference reading it as opposed to hearing a performance. Like, a performance is so subjective and it can make or break certain elements in the book.
Absolutely.
Did you find that certain elements in the performance were better than reading, like, physically?
It's been a while since I read it, but the two things I wrote when I reviewed the audiobook was that Beth sounded 12 rather than 15. She was like really annoying. And I read a bit out for these guys. I'll do it again if you like. For the poetry stuff, it was just deadpans like, Mum shouts again. I can't understand her. The water is up to my chest.
Yeah,
blah,
so
blah.
it was the emotive.
And I wasn't sure whether that was deliberate because, like, she's supposed to be, like, numb and not feeling anything because of all that happened to her. Or that was the only justification I could really think of for it, but it was still really boring.
You still need to put feeling in if it's an audiobook.
Exactly. That was the thing. I was like, you're just reading it, and so I don't know what the decisions were that went into that.
Any final thoughts? And thumbs up or thumbs down if you liked or didn't like the book.
Thumbs up from me.
Yeah.
Woo! Full house.
Unanimous.
Yay!
I would definitely read this again, like really easily.
I'd like to read it again because I think I did miss a lot of the nuances of the writing. Just because I was so like invested in the narrative, and I was like, I need to find out
exactly.
I got lost in the writing that I kind of forgot about the murder mystery.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Valid.
And then they revealed at the end, and I was like, oh,
that's right.
Oh, that's right. There's a plot to this book.
So I guess it like says a lot about the writing.
I do kind of feel that was very evident in Catching's chapters, though. I will say that because I kind of feel like I got so, like I said, I'm very description based when I'm reading. I got really engrossed in that, and I loved the way they wrote it, and I analyzed the way they wrote it. But I never forgot about the murder mystery with Beth because it was always in the forefront. So I find that very interesting.
Any final thoughts before we reveal next month's book?
Over to me. Beautiful. Well, this should surprise nobody because I was actually given the authority of choosing which book it is. So it's going to be The Night Circus.
I
my all-time favorite book.
Cool.
Good. I bought it for Ashley the other day. It's amazing. It has been 7 years since I've read this book, so it's going to be fairly new to me as well. But when I say that I enjoy description, get used to it. It's
you read me
like I've listened to before.
Yeah, she's read me the first like couple pages into it, and I'm so excited.
It's really, really good.
Nice.
But like I said, it's been 7 years, so it's going to be semi-new for me as well. And I've actually started reading it again. I started reading it the other day, and it's just as good as I remember. So
this is kind of like for the siblings here. It's kind of very satisfying because I've been shouting at Elly for ages to read Patrick Ness, and so I forced her to read one, and she has been shouting at me for 7 years to read The Night Circus.
Oh
now
man!
To read the
Nice.
I was given the power, and I didn't waste it.
Like circle that's like coming to me.
Yeah.
The question is, what's the next one you're going to force me to read?
Patrick Ness. Let's just be real.
Probably.
Look, the Chaos Walking movie isn't too far away. I was thinking about that today. Need to reread that.
When you say it's not too far away, it's already
well, like February, but like that's gonna go.
And how many
fast.
times has it been pushed back?
He posted on Instagram that he has watched the completed movie.
Oh, okay. Well, that's progress
so,
at least.
Yeah, like
and
had a score and everything.
Again, honestly, they've already changed it.
How many times?
This is a book chat, not a movie chat.
Being optimistic. Sorry.
It's a storytelling chat. It's an everything chat. We had a whole discussion about Stephen Fry. What are you talking about?
That was audiobooks.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. It's really awesome having people getting onto the book club with us.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about the next one.
Me too.
Yeah, that'll be really good.
That's gonna be good.
Well, what we'll do, we'll link Ash and Emily's details in the description below on this video, so you can go and check out all of their wonderful content on their various YouTube channels.
Oh no.
If you want to join us in our Swell book club, get
Oh,
a
no.
copy of Night Circus by Emily Morgenstern, and we'll be discussing it. Erin, Erin Morgenstern, and join us for our next Swell book club. You can hop over onto our Facebook page and join us in the conversations we're having over there. We'd love to see you. And if
It's
you want to
really
support,
fun.
Do
it is really fun. It's
We
a
have
really lovely
testimonies.
community.
Yeah.
So go and subscribe, do all the liking, and we'll see you next time.
Yay. See you guys.
Fair.
I've been told just go listen to it on Audible because it's read by Stephen Fry.
Oh,
Yeah.
sold.
I have
Easy, yeah.
listened to a little bit of Stephen Fry. He is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to listen to it because of the phrase "he pocketed it," because I'm sure you've heard the story about that, where J.K. Rowling
No?
specifically wrote that phrase multiple times because Stephen Fry just could not say it. Like she wrote that into the books
Really?
because he couldn't say it.
That's the kind of spite I want as an author.
Right.
Next level.
Stephen Fry's
That's
good though.
amazing.
A+.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to Mythos because I've not read that one, but Bethany said that it's amazing, and I've read a little bit of it, and it's still
I've heard
amazing.
it's
So
good. Yeah.
There's also a version where he
Nice.
reads The Hobbit on top of
Oh, nice.
everyone else reading The Hobbit.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
the Audible account
Cool,
is going to
cool,
get a
cool,
bit of a workout.
Yeah.